just go? We've done that twice. We've done it twice. So. Yeah, that could be. Okay, well, why don't we get this rolling here? So, once again, welcome everyone here in the sanctuary and those watching us online. We are streaming this over our website, I believe. Thanks for taking a bit of extra time this morning to be here with us as we, as a congregation, continue to contemplate some exciting developments in the life of our community here. So this is the second of 2 question and answer periods. I have a short presentation here. It's just basically a recap of our August meeting. We'll get through that pretty quickly, and then we'll have an informal Q&A session where anyone can ask questions. So before we get going, Aaron, would you like to lead us in a prayer?
Okay. Is it on? Hot mic? Testing, testing. Can you hear me? Okay, got it. Let's pray. God, we are grateful for all that you have done, and we continue to hope in your promises and in the joy. May your joy be our strength. May we see each other as beloved as we continue on this journey to move towards a space and a place where your holiness is felt in rich and deep ways, like we always have felt it, but where we invite new people in and find joy in working together. May it be so. Amen.
Amen. Thanks, Aaron. So as you've heard this morning, and you're well aware, we've got lots of exciting planning in the works for our 65th celebration, thanks to our wonderful staff and volunteers. So we're looking forward to that this next weekend. You'll recall, perhaps, that we met back in August, to present and vote on some initial sort of campus improvements. You've started to see some of those take shape here. And these are exciting developments as we look forward to our next 65 years. So back at that August meeting, we're showing here, these were, we presented membership and attendance statistics for our church over the past couple decades. We learned that we've been in a bit of decline in some of these areas. So we asked ourselves these questions that you see up here as we look forward to new chapters in our church's history. Again, we've said this multiple times. We acknowledge that building improvements alone do not guarantee that we're going to have people flooding in our doors, but they're undoubtedly a critical part of putting our best and absolute best selves out there. So at our meeting in August, we voted on funding 2 initial improvement priorities. So we have phase 1. Under phase 1, there are 3 priorities. We approved those first 2. So here's that first priority of those. This primarily focused on the narthex and the downstairs bathrooms here. And thanks to the proceeds from the endowment fund, in addition to a generous $15,000 donation from one of our members, we were able to get this going. So this is marked as funded, and this is well underway. We'll begin to see some of these improvements over the next month or so, I would think. So
Everything takes longer than you think it takes. Who's redone their kitchen recently? Everything takes way longer than you think it takes.
It takes a while. So signage, art is in the works, and the Innovation Committee has met to select some materials and colors for some of the furnishings that we'll see back here. The second one here is also funded. This is priority 2.
I think that needs an applause. Can we celebrate the joy in the Lord that our parking lot will be repaved?
Yeah, so this
probably
is our parking
in
lot.
spring, but anyway.
Yeah, Yeah, from another very generous donation, incredible. So this is actually, I think they're still working on permitting. Still gonna get through permitting, and we're hoping to see some concrete work in the next, if all goes well, in the next few weeks or month or so. So the start, we would get started on the sidewalk, you know, all the concrete stuff, and then the asphalt, the actual paving, repaving would be in the spring. Right? Hi, Howie.
Even in the state, because usually if you do a curve, you tear up part of the.
You do. We'll have to be sure that everything is restored sufficiently. Yeah, so it's functional.
And are we going to tell our salt people not to put so much salt down because that's what's killing our sidewalks?
I mean, we could do that, building committee. I think there are alternatives to things that will eat up concrete. There's different types of salt and.
Especially if it's brand new. If it's brand new,
Yeah.
it's not cured.
Yeah. Yeah.
My guess is
Duly
those
noted.
alternatives are expensive, but we will look into them.
Could put heat wires under there. So we're looking forward to.
The pastor shoveling the snow is not happening. I love you all.
Then the third priority under phase one was new flooring throughout the building. This has not yet been formally funded, so we show that as pending up here. And this might be one of those improvements that makes the most sort of initial impact. So that was phase one with the 3 priorities. We also brought up phase 2. Now these are more the bigger, I don't want to say longer term, you know, we're hoping we can get these going sooner than later, but these are the dream big ideas, I think is what Aaron called them. This is just a rough outline here based on Aaron and everyone's vision here to give us the best chance possible to grow as a congregation. So for all these items that are listed up here, we don't have any details or decisions about any of these here because really there are none. Aaron gave the staff and the church and the innovation committee the challenge just to dream big, come up with different ideas, and these are some of those here. We haven't been given the permission to move forward with these or start to prioritize. That's what we're going to be moving toward when we vote in November. And then if we do find support within the congregation, we are thinking that we're going to retain a professional to come in, an expert that has expertise in church design and redesign. They would help us build some consensus, help us prioritize, help us understand what the various costs would be of these different pieces, and then it's basically putting together a master plan. And then at that point is when we would decide which of these pieces we can and will move forward with. And that would be, I imagine, brought back to the congregation. Yes, sir.
These expert consultants being brought in, will they be interacting with like the innovation committee or the members of the church during that process? Not just to come up, well, here's what we want to do.
Yes.
Without any input from us.
Yeah, absolutely. That's our goal. I mean, we're just starting to dig into this. We did have one come through, did a walkthrough. It was like a free walkthrough Danny found. It's like, hey, why don't you just come and walk through? It was an architect. And they provided us with a proposal just to kind of help us understand how this would go. And that was definitely part of it, where they come in, they sit down with different leaders, different committees, and I mean, we would hope that they would do some sort of surveys, you know, that sort of thing among the group. So it's not like we're just telling someone to run off, and we would definitely have to be involved. So, yes.
I'm agreeing with you, but what we in the innovation group were told was that if we do bring in these architects who specialize in church redesign, that they will, not that we hope they will meet with every committee to understand how these various spaces are used and what are the needs and wishes of those committees involved. So it's not, and well, gee, we kind of hope they will, and they're going to do some surveys. No, they're going to meet.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I just want
No,
to
you can,
push that
no,
point.
I'm comfortable with that, because the first, we've only gotten one proposal in so far, and, you know, I haven't talked to them, or we haven't, other than some initial conversations. I do have questions about exactly what that means, and we'll be sure to make sure that they will come in and do that. They'll meet with committees. Thank you for saying that. I don't mean to be wishy-washy, it's just some of this stuff we don't completely know yet.
I mean, we're in new territory, right? So I had lunch with John Rogers a couple weeks ago, and so he obviously has a memory of the build here. He was here for all of this. I think in the past, like 35, 40 years ago, you hired an architect. They probably did church stuff. Sometimes they did other church stuff. And then, you know, you did sort of a plan. And I know that some of you had input in that. Some of you felt like you didn't get enough input in that. Sometimes architects sort of go on their own. We really will hire someone that's like a church innovation rebuilding expert. That's what churches do. You see Lifeline Church, right? Or what is that called? Am I saying it right?
One line, yeah.
One Line, Lifeline, One Line Church. You see, like, there is a whole industry because churches are needing to make changes, because we're not the only church that's experiencing a downturn, right? So that is absolute, we don't know what that means, but absolutely what I've understood is that they meet with the staff, right? Because we don't want anything to happen in the music space without Brian knowing and Wendy knowing and the choir knowing and, you know, that all of you. People on the, you know, worship committee will, if we do resign here, will be involved in that, and the congregation will get a look at it and say so. So it'll be in partnership with the people that use the spaces. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
And I don't remember who all was in leadership. I was not. But we came across old files from Ruck Pate. I don't know if anyone was here and remembers that, but someone had hired that architecture or design group, and Jim has the whole big thing. And I remember coming to some either cottage meetings or something. I remember coming on a Saturday and giving input, and we had surveys about, you know, if you have youth or if you, so I don't think we went forward with that. Then there was the downturn, and, you know, we didn't fund doing some of that, but included like 6 classrooms off Dobbs staff, and so it was a big study. But I remember as a church member early on being involved, so I would imagine that's just what we're talking about, that there might be meetings where people could come, maybe jot down, this is important to me, or I don't care about this, but get the stakeholders to have some input. And that's, again, we don't know what that'll look like. This first guy, you know, Danny just saw a freebie, had him come through, and he wrote up a pretty extensive 11 or 12-page report. But we know there are a couple other churches in the area that we can contact who had architectural design firms and see if they'll do a, you know, a freebie or for a minimal, because we're not hiring anybody, we just want input before we make big decisions. So that rec page.
Well, we're not hiring anybody now, right, but we will. You all will need to let us, right?
Yeah, that's really what the vote will be. It's not, you know, blank check, move forward with these. You know, I think there was some concern about that among some at one point. Hi, Dave.
I don't have a question. I have opinions that I want to express.
We're shocked. We're shocked, Dave.
I have to admit to you that when I first heard about this, I thought it was a bad idea, especially this phase 2 of a building refresh. It seemed to me that everything's pretty nice as it is, you know, but after I've thought about it for a while, I think as a homeowner, it's important to maintain, and I think a couple of capital improvements that Diane and I did were very beneficial. We replaced all the windows, and what a blessing that was to our house. And then we put a man cave in our basement. We finished the basement. And Diane and I often watch TV together, but the one difference we have is she has no interest in sports, and I love sports. So I could go down there and watch my shows when she could watch some other show up in the rec room. So it turned out to be wonderful. And I'm thinking that these improvements will probably I think if you think this is going to bring in a lot of new members, I think you're going to be very disappointed. In my opinion, the way to get new members is to go out and knock on doors. And I have a couple examples. I don't know how many of you know how this church was started, but the founding minister came here. There was no church, there was nothing, no land, no building, and he was on assignment from the UCC church, probably had a small expense account and a meager salary, but you know, he was dedicated. He went out and called on house after house after house. And I'm told that if he came to a house, he would tell them what he was and what his purpose was, and he would ask them eventually if they were church. And if they were church, he'd say, wonderful, and he'd move on to the next house. But if he found people that were unchurched, he said, would you mind coming to one of my services I'm holding? And you know what? In a short time, it's an amazing story. He took in new members of about 40 people, our founding class. I think that's an amazing, amazing accomplishment. It's just unbelievable. And that's the result of his going house to house and calling. And my other example would be the Mormon Church. I don't know if you know that they bring young people, after they graduate from high school, they have them commit to one whole year of going out and calling on houses. And they called on us. They called on Diane and I. And we told them right up front, you know, we're happily church. We're not going to join the Mormon Church. But they kept coming back. They were persistent. And I have to say, it was a nice experience. They were lovely young people, and it was a pleasure meeting them. So I have this dream, or this vision, that we form a committee of maybe 6 people and have them commit to maybe 4 months of going out and knocking on doors and trying to doing just what our founding minister did. I would say maybe 1 month they'll say, let's try to call on everybody in Gables and say, hey, right down the street, we're a church here, and we're a loving and wonderful family, and we would welcome you to come see us. And then maybe the next month you'd say, let's do everyone on Elm Street, you know, and do that for 4 months. And then I'd say you evaluate it and think, is this working? If it's working, maybe you try it another couple months. If not, you give it up. But my vision is that the first time these people would go out, that Aaron would go with them, just for maybe the first 3 or 4 houses they visited, because I think it would give them courage and confidence to go out and do it, because it's not easy, it's hard. And maybe after you do it a few times, I think it'd be all right. And I think Erin would give them confidence and be a good example, because she's good at meeting people, and it would be like a mini training service for these people. So that's my great wish. And I just have one other comment. In my opinion, that today in this country, there's more unchurched people than there's ever been. And so I think there's a lot of fruitfulness out there, and it can be reaped if we try. Thank you.
Thank
so
you.
much, Dave.
I heard we're building a man cave. Right, Dave? Building a man cave. That's your priority at the church, where sports can happen. I will say that 65 years ago is different than today. in terms of how we evangelize, but I absolutely think what you're onto, Dave, is something that we all need to participate in the evangelism of the church. I will say that the first 2 seasons I was here, and Anne Marie was with me and Roseanne was with me, we did go door to door with postcards. You don't knock because people aren't always home, and there's a different sense of knocking, strangers knocking on doors these days than there was 65 years ago. But we did leave those postcards with peeps and with "Are we your cup of tea," right, for Christmas. Yeah. So we actually have walked all around the streets around here and left our calling cards. But what I heard from you, Dave, is a desire for all of us and for me to be included in that, and that you are proud of me. Thank you. That you think I'm good at meeting people. Yeah, thank you. That we all... What?
I think face-to-face is important.
Yeah. But we all become people that invite people to church and meet new people and find spaces to meet new people. Absolutely. So yes, I love that enthusiasm. I love it.
I want to add to what Dave is saying. It took me a long time to get on board with this, and my problem of getting on board was thinking that we're going to add 100 new members or 10 new members, and it was really when I said, okay, we're doing this for us, and that's when I really got on board. And the other thing, I was asked this week about how much was in the endowment fund, and it's $640,000, something like that. Anyway, so that's my 2 cents.
Thanks, Howie.
Oh, we have
a question in the back. Or a comment.
I have an add-on to Dave's, and the thought is just going through my head is that if you're going and inviting them to something more than come and join us at church, I think we're a wonderful community and I think we have a lot to offer. But I think taking into account today's world and what people want and how they really value their time, et cetera, if we had something here that was not worth inviting them to, but could hook them in, not necessarily in the pulpit, but whether it's taking that prairie path idea outside and now taking that space and making it into a pavilion where what we're doing is inviting them over for a weekly coffee seminar that our pastor is running, music celebrations, or something, or even getting the preschool, somebody operating a preschool back again. That was such a hook when our kids were little. But going out and proselytizing, but bringing them in, not just for church, but that we have more that brings in community. And I don't know what it is, but I feel like there's something there.
I think, so you both, Dave and you both are hitting on something. I think one of the things we will determine is relationally, how do we get people here? How do we invite people here and give them a space to be here? Because it is all relational. In 2024, people want an experience, right? They want to come. If they've been around here, they want to see something new that we invite them to. And then we want to be people who invite people, and that takes practice and courage. And you're right, I appreciate that. We're not doing it with the assumption that 1,000 people will break down the door, but we'll take them. But that we will enjoy the space in a new way. When I was at Resurrection Church, so at the conference I was at, we were at a hugely open and affirming United Methodist Church outside of Denver, Colorado. And their worship space was poured concrete, just to put that out there. And then they actually had a hybrid of like chairs up front and pews in the back. And there's just like, it's figuring out for us what new means for us, what exciting means for us, and what we want to invite people to. So it is physical and relational. And I think you're touching on exactly that. Thank you. Yeah.
Excellent.
I just have a question. If we've taken a look at any of the other more theologically progressive churches in our area, what are their facilities? What are they doing? are they on the same mission? And I guess what would our competition be, right, for after we make these changes?
Guess we haven't, yeah, we haven't. Oh, you have visited.
I have.
Yeah,
So
I have not visited.
the reason that some of the color came in and the signage that you've seen is because we had visitors come in who didn't know where the bathroom was or we didn't have a number on. We didn't have things that kind of help people visually see us and know who we were when they walked in the space. I think the progressive churches in our area, the ones that are growing, are Gary United Methodist Church and First Congo Glen Ellen. Does pretty well. It's not like booming. And those are deeply historic, big worship spaces, right? Like very different than our worship space, right? People say that I don't wear a robe because I don't like robes. I love a clergy robe. Then I don't have to worry about what I'm wearing. But I think our space necessitates something a little more modern, and I think that our competition is one line because it pretends to be progressive, but it isn't. But offers coffee and burritos and family fun and new space. And so that's why some of the work, and I sent people out to go look at different churches, because I think ultimately the progressive robed formal church is taken in our area. And the other one that's St. Paul, I'm going to say because I don't want to be rude to St. Paul, but they're not growing. But they have that big worship, beautiful space, and they're very Catholic and formal, but they're not growing. So the churches in our area growing have these huge churches and have had not the decline we've had, and so they've been able to capture that. And so Paula would agree that like First Congo keeps up their facility really well, does beautiful things there. It's not cheap, right? But it's an old, and I visited when the UCC, I had a meeting at another UCC, and I won't say what city because that's rude, and they're progressive and have a big worship space, and it wasn't kept up, and it was very apparent. It was very interesting. But I think that's why I'm not trying to be disruptive to people's understanding of tradition, but I truly think that if we want families to come into this area and to come to us, we need to be aware that our funky, beautiful, wonderful building demands us to be funky, wonderful, and beautiful as well in new ways. And every person that's visited, from my friends who are pastors, has said this space is so beautifully kept up, and the energy here is perfect, and the bones of this beautiful place are perfect, and there's just these tweaks that will make it energy, right? Energy flow. Again, no guarantee, but does that make sense, Annette?
So Annette, just to answer your question, one of the things that the Innovation Committee did is our homework was to go to different churches and take pictures of their spaces and what they're doing to update.
And we do have some pictures at the end of this on some of the spaces.
Jump through. Yeah, we did actually. When you said, have we gone out to progressive churches, and I'm hearing one line isn't necessary.
Or progressive-ish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
that does answer the question. And just as Howie said, we should be doing this for us. How many people have redesigned their kitchen in order to sell their house and then said, golly, I wish I could enjoy this? I think that we're there too. I think that we need to do some updating for us. It's what we need. Yes, we hope to bring more people in, but we also need to do it for us.
So I think in looking at these other churches and what they've done, this is my impression. You have maybe these progressive churches like Gary United Methodist and First Congo and Glen Ellen. And then you have, what's the word I want, right? Leaning.
less progressive.
Thank you.
Less progressive.
Thank you. That's the least mean term. Less progressive churches that have all the modern, new, updated, youthful feeling, blah, blah, blah. And I don't think I have seen a church yet that has both of those. So we are uniquely able, perhaps, to be the only intersection between the visual and the theological that nobody else has, because it's always one or the other.
You have hit the nail on the head, Dorothy. I went to, the applause.
Yeah.
So when I went to, it was United Methodist Church outside Denver. It doesn't matter, Highland Park. So it's at Highland Ranch, a nice area. And they had this hybrid that I thought was exactly what we could do, right? It has an aesthetic that's churchy, but also updated and modern. They had carpet squares everywhere. They had dynamic space in the worship nearby for children. Every church I've been to has that, right? And their worship space was hybrid, but very traditional, as well as like screens and stuff. I mean, it was, again, it's uniquely who we are, bringing that to life. Yeah, you got it.
Thanks for that. So I just had one or two more slides here, and then we can continue with our questions, because these might generate some more questions. Okay, so at our meeting in August, we had those first two votes, which covered the priority 1 and 2. That was the narthex bathrooms and then the parking lot. Our third proposal that we put forth wasn't necessarily anything super binding. It was just kind of a fact finding. It's okay, how are we going to pay for these next steps? So that was put up here, and that proposal was to support gathering information regarding possible funding sources for some or all of those big dream ideas in that previous slide. So since then, in August, we have been doing a lot of fact finding. Maybe most of you have heard, we did meet with, Eric coordinated a meeting with a realtor. What's his name? Lance, a local, Lance Kamas. You might see his name in this area, yeah. So he came out kind of as a courtesy and took a small group of us. We looked at the parcel over there. He gave us some feedback. So we've been hard at work looking at what type of, what that Moore parcel could bring to us. And right now that is kind of the leading idea for how we would move forward to fund some of these future improvements. And that would be looking at the sale of that Moore parcel. Right now, there's a feeling that maybe we subdivide that parcel and sell the north half. Just as kind of like a little mini step toward just seeing where that takes us. And the council is currently leaning, we have somewhat of a consensus here, to sell that north parcel and then use the initial proceeds of that sale to retain the services of that professional. So it's kind of like an intermediate step. That professional will then help us prioritize those next improvements. So I think that's it in a nutshell. Howie, I know there's some funding, investment committee, loan type stuff we would have to do that we're working through. So that's kind of the direction we're leaning, and that's going to be the foundation of, we're still putting together what the verbiage of our vote that we will put together for the congregation on November 17th. And that was the other thing. We decided that if we do go this route, we needed some time to communicate this plan better to the congregation. We thought November 3rd would be a great opportunity because that's our all-committee meeting. That could be an opportunity for us to be gathered around at our different committee tables and really start to talk about these next steps. So I think yeah, do you want to comment on that? Yeah.
You can say it, just real quick. Even if you're not on a committee, come that day and let's discuss.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the point of all committee is to have those committees together.
So if we divide it and we sell part of it, won't we still be paying money on the other piece? So it's going to just continue to cost us money to have that instead of selling the whole thing.
Yeah, so the costs right now to maintain that property, I mean, I'll say this, it's relatively minor. I think some would agree. We pay for some mowing. What is that a year?
The total cost for like $1,500.
$1,500. So, and then we also pay HOA fees right now of $900. And those would be cut in half, I believe.
But we're still paying, but we don't use it.
That's correct. And this is just kind of, I mean, this is not to say that a year or so down the road, I mean, selling one parcel is not going to fund all of those improvements. So this is just kind of a step in that direction. I mean, we've heard that maybe we need to, you know, let's take a measured approach to this. So.
Why not just sell the whole thing? Because then we won't owe any more money, and we'll be done with that, and we can move on to continue to do the church. Because if we don't sell the other piece, now we still have something that we're paying for. We can find someplace else for the Easter egg hunt.
Yeah.
That is, you know.
So the other piece of that is this: if we were to subdivide, that north piece is easily kind of, it's clear, there's no trees on it. It sort of makes sense. The south piece has our driveway currently goes through that. So there would be I would guess a $15,000 to $20,000 expense to move our driveway.
But this is the time to do it when we're redoing everything. So
Well, this is a consideration. This is feedback that we can take, and you know, we may bring. I mean, this is where we ended up the other night. There was a lot of different opinions and push and pull, and we kind of all found ourselves moving toward that position.
So one of the things, there are two different ways we could go about selling the property. One is sell the entire lot, and that lot that exists today that we own is larger than the other lots that are on Lodelia Estates going down that road. We can subdivide into two different size lots. So one thought process we went through is, well, if we go through the effort to subdivide the lots, subdivide the lot to two lots, once it's subdivided, we can certainly sell that north piece, and then at our choosing, at time of our choosing, sell that second piece. Or if at some point we could decide, there's nothing that says that we have to sell that. If we come back with the recommendation from the Innovation Committee and the architects with this great plan, and we need to sell the lot to fund it, we can do that. But it'll be an option at that point. The other thought was, if we subdivide, we think, subdividing into two lots, we can get more money than selling one lot. So at the very least, we would think it makes sense to move forward with the subdivision of the lot, so we have either option.
The other consideration is, of course, land is never going to get cheaper around here. It's going to appreciate in value.
We hope, yeah. But Bill's right. He talked about the other thought is we sell the one lot now. A year from now, the second lot could be sold for more money potentially.
A couple of things. I think the lot gives us the option also of more parking. Please God that we need that. My girlfriend that I go to lunch with every Sunday goes to Knox Presbyterian, downtown Naperville, and they are so landlocked. People are complaining, their own members are complaining there's no place to park. They used to park in shopping centers, at a bank that was closed on the weekend. That became a strip mall, and parking is an extreme problem for them. That kind of gives us an option there too. I know there's more of our land here that are trees now that could be converted, but they'll do something to the looks of the place too. One of the things that was brought up was to entice Prairie Path passersby to have something like a water fountain, a pet fountain, picnic tables or benches or something like that. And I think that's a great idea to attract people. But has that been run past the homeowners association? What if we had a pavilion out here and we had Prairie Path people picnicking there? Would that be objectionable to them? I don't know.
The homeowners association.
I was going to take one at a time. She had 2 points, but go ahead, Rick.
Well, I was just going to say, as far as the homeowners association, that has to do that we belong to because of the lots we own. That only has to do with the property that's on Lodelia Estates. It has nothing to do with whatever we do here. No. So I don't think that would be an issue unless we did something that became a nuisance that they could. But I don't think that we have any restrictions on what we would do with our own property.
On our property. as long as it's within the
Right.
permits and the zoning codes and all that, we can pretty much do what we want with our own property. The parking, I have heard that comment. Yes, there have been plans, I think even sometime between 1990 and 2001, some plans were drawn up to possibly put a parking lot over there. That was part of this Ruck-Pate study, I believe.
And I think that, if I remember correctly, that would have allowed for about 20 additional parking spaces. It wasn't a lot.
Yeah.
So that's what that would have been if we had the entire piece of that land available to us right now.
Right, and I believe, I'm not sure, maybe there's somebody that was here that went through that study, but the conclusion of that study was, let's not put parking over there, let's go to 2 services. Am I correct?
Right.
So I think that helped relieve were there parking issues on site? I wasn't here. But I think the goal was to relieve the parking issues.
At our peak, the parking lot would be filled and people would be parking on Gables as well as, I always forget, is that Lloyd or Penny over there? I forget which one. And that's why we put that little asphalt path going over there because we have people parking there. So and the current parking lot has around 100 parking spaces. So if we were, I just kind of do the math, think about how many people attend on a given Sunday and how many parking places that would be.
Right. So. We do. We got the realtor thought, based on what the previous lots sold for, that if we subdivided and sold them individually, we might, I don't know if it's net or whatever, about 350,000 per each of the 2 lots for a total of around 700,000. Obviously there are realtor fees in there, so that's within, in the ballpark.
So, and just real quick aside, I think we've mentioned this before, the last lot that was sold in Lodelia Estates, the one closest to our lot, ended up with a bidding war, and the person that lost the bidding war did approach us quite a few months ago about possibly buying our lot. We weren't ready to do anything with that at that time, so there is some interest still, I think, for that property.
I don't think it would stick around very long.
No.
Kenna has it.
I just wanted to be honest about what we've been talking about as a council and a church. For our upcoming congregational meeting, we talked about selling the entire property. And then we got a lot of feedback from people that they're very attached to it and that they don't want the whole thing sold. And why don't we sell just one lot right now to give us enough money to go ahead forward with getting an architect and looking at some of these things. And then as we find the need for more money, then we sell the other lot. So we have talked about all aspects of it and have come right now to doing one lot.
And when Lance came, he agreed. Land in DuPage County is scarce and getting scarcer. He said subdividing makes a lot of sense. He thought you could perhaps ask maybe up to 375 and maybe end up with 350. But those other lots, he gave us the comparison, and some of them were a little bit bigger, but some were a little bit smaller. So then he said that last lot, he agreed. He said you could subdivide and hang on to one. And I said, well, would that be very valuable? And he said somebody could come in and say, it's the last lot, it's really valuable, this is what I'll pay for it. The other option would be if we subdivide it, there could be somebody who would come in and want both, so they could put a bigger house, and that would take care of the issue of it coming closer to our driveway and property. So we don't know what that would be, but if we subdivide it, somebody could come and just, say, wow, that's a big piece left in DuPage County, and make a bid. And then we'd have a decision to make. Are we gonna go for that, or just sell one at a time? So we have some options. Yeah, one parcel. Oh, 1.2 mil? Okay, Bill is already putting in.
Yeah, are there any bids in here? Going once? Going twice? Sold! Thank you, Marge. I saw your hand go up. Thank you. That takes care of it. Who
Yeah.
wants to have a really quick walk to church?
Yeah,
No one?
just a walk.
We can make a parsonage? Just kidding.
Oh, yeah, that too. So, so that's really all we have here. I mean, we can continue our Q&A here. These were just some of those initial questions and answers that we put out to the congregation. These were emailed out. I don't have all the answers up here, but those are in that packet that was sent out, just to kind of plant the seeds, get the questions going. So.
I did get a comment from Marilyn as she was leaving. She said, she didn't say anything about redoing here, but what she did say was there needs to be ADA accessibility to the chancel, and she's right. And she wanted that to be a part of the discussions so that all abled people can get up to read or do what they need to do on the chancel. So I wanted to
Yeah, we've heard that. I think
say that,
Kelly had that
because that was
comment.
important to her.
What else?
Sure.
Paula.
So Paula has been at First Congregational Glen Ellen for years and years. Her perspective on church is valuable. Thank you.
Okay, so this is me speaking as an individual, not necessarily as a staff member. One of the things that they've been talking about in seminary and everything is the way that we need to change how we fund churches. The church that we know, this is history major now, is based basically in a society that's 1950s, 1960s. There's a large middle class. There's a lot of families have spare money. They can give to the church regularly. It's a thing. So, what has been shrinking in our society? The middle class. Now, I think we've, in this, and in Glen Ellen, we haven't felt it as much because of the type of demographics that we have in Glen Ellen, and I'm sure that you guys have here. But I don't think it would be a bad choice to start looking into what they now call, I forget what the official terminology is, but it's like a zero net or gain or loss. To where basically, what is a church's biggest asset that they have as an organization? Their building.
And their
you
people.
maintain your building, you make sure it's good, and you know what? When do we use the building? Sundays. Do we truly use the building to its potential the rest of the week? We don't. And so that's what they're starting to try to push, to where you rent out a room to be used during the, and in order to do that and facilitate that and get the most money for not necessarily loaning out your building, but inviting the community into your building as well, to make it so that your zero is having an updated building. Having a building that has good internet, that has a good all that kind of stuff. So just something to kind of think in the back of your mind, and to think that any church doesn't have to do this. I can tell you right now that we're doing that at First Congregational Church and Church of Glen Ellen. We have our bottom now. You can, and then that means also that you can give space to organizations that need it. Like we have a family therapist group. I forget exactly what they are, but they rent out some of the old offices that we don't use. So just something to keep in the back of your mind about the future.
I think 2 points off of that, thank you, is one, Danny does a great job of actually renting out the space on Saturdays, and part of during the week we have a cellist who does
The lessons, right?
lessons. I can never think of the word, and it's funny because I always have to think. Sometimes I turn off all the lights when I leave, and she's like, "No, I'm still up here." And we also do lots of what are they? The blood drives here, and the whole thing. Retreats and everything. But also to the point, when my friends Molly and Heather came by, who are professional pastors, and Heather's a colorist, like she's very artistic, so she actually loved the green. But we went upstairs, and there's 2 classrooms and an office we don't use upstairs anymore. And to the point of the Prairie Path Church, we don't have that demographic in this area to necessarily fund or have a Prairie Path Church. But
the preschool.
the preschool.
Yeah.
Upstairs, a yoga studio. We do yoga in here. If we updated some of those classrooms up there we don't use, an office for a therapist, so if we were to update some of the spaces and the upstairs bathrooms were up to code and everything, it's possible, I think that's, yeah.
And it could be a great opportunity for outreach as well.
Yes.
I tell you, as someone that has used mental health
Agreed, yeah.
Yeah, fantastic.
We did do this in the past. We used to rent out Dobstaff Hall to Gymboree, and they had classes multiple times during the week, and we did get members. We did get people that came to church. Once they knew we were here, they obviously had looked for a Gymboree class in their neighborhood, and they became aware of us. But we actually did it at that point because we needed additional income. I don't know that we were doing it to grow our membership, but we did. And I hear a lot of people talking about preschools. It was a wonderful thing and a wonderful way to grow our church when we had a preschool, which was started, I believe, by John Rogers. But times have changed now. Now, many of your elementary schools have preschools in them, and they're typically pretty affordable, I believe. And I think, anybody who has kids going to one school would rather have them all at the same place. And we just don't have the same need that we had when we had the preschool here. There's preschools all over. So I don't think that's probably something really realistic, besides the fact that then you have a whole different set of standards that you have to meet. So just...
Yeah, it's great. I do like how, there have been comments about, we should be mixing outreach into this plan, and that, the rental space upstairs, making that, modernize it so that it is a place where we can do outreach. I think that's what we're going for.
Yeah, Sue's right. When we started the preschool here, there was a real need. There weren't that many types of programs available for people that there are now today. So it was a big difference. And the other thing that would be a real concern is nowadays things have really changed. So if we were to have a preschool in this building, there would be a lot of things we would have to change, not only from an accessibility standpoint, but from a safety standpoint. So that it's just a consideration. So, but I think a good point is there are a lot of different ways. I've heard a lot of good suggestions about things we can do in terms of outreach. But the key gets back to, in order to get people to come in, that's not going to do it. Updating the space isn't going to do it alone. But you've got to have an updated space for some of these things that we need to do. But,
all right.
Because people are online, they won't hear you.
With part 1 and part 2, with the money in place already, okay, when will these renovations and stuff start?
So with the parking lot, I said that a little bit earlier, we're hoping as soon as the permits come through, maybe in the next several weeks, we could get started on the concrete. We have to watch the weather and all that. And then next year, the blacktop surface would be done early in the spring. Yes. And then the priority 1, where are we on bathrooms
We put all of the stuff that was able to be decided upon, colors and such, for the innovation committee came back, and so we are in the process of, again, building takes a little while, so I was sort of hoping it would be done by next Sunday, but that was a dream I had. It was a dream. But we have gotten back and we're ordering what's gonna come. And so that's where we're in the process of. And so, I'm hoping it's done by Christmas. Yeah, we're hoping the bathrooms will be redone by Christmas. So we've made the choices in the bathroom, and they're in a, what? No, just the ones over here. Yeah. And then the one that's back in the children's area. We're probably going to make one, but we're still. So the thing about renovations in 2024 is the cart before the horse situation, right? So everyone's like, how much is everything going to cost? We don't want to know until everything costs something. But we are given a budget, and we kind of work within the budget, but things cost way more than we think they're going to. And so we're doing our best to kind of keep everything within the budget. So we may have to figure out some creative stuff and maybe come back for some stuff in the children's area. But yeah. The what? The narthex should be done. It's just signage, and we've ordered some things in a children's space. But the bathrooms were a priority, and those should be done by Christmas if everything gets ordered appropriately. And the innovation committee is going to work on paint and the vanity and the mirrors, and they get kind of freedom to do some of that fun stuff. So let's hope by Christmas.
But there still are some supply chain issues, and having just gone through a renovation project at home, well, it was pretty much on time, but we were warned up front that there were still some things that may be delayed for different reasons. So we just have to be patient, and hopefully things will happen soon.
Any other questions? It's been great. Lots of good feedback. Hope you got some answers. Do we want to wrap things up? Is there anything else? Going.
I want to. I appreciate, and the people watching online. Like, I know this isn't easy, and I know that there's ways in which we had hopes and dreams of a parking lot getting so. We had hopes and dreams and plans, but I think all of this moving forward feels really hopeful and joyful, and it gives us all possibilities and beauty. And I do think sort of Rick has become what he said last week at the Q&A, which is like, let's do it for ourselves, right? And what Howie echoed is like, again, like, I watch all these renovation shows, never own a home, so watch all these renovation shows, and I am always struck by the fact that they redo their house and make it gorgeous to sell it. And then you're just like, but you could have lived in it. And so to the point of, I know some people are like, let's hold on to property, it increases in value and all those things, like, but we need to increase in value. We need to increase in value. And so we're gonna need to be creative and brave, right, to get some of these things done, so. Thank you.
Sharon.
And Jim, and thanks Jim and Rick and Dawn and Kenna for so much work on this, so thank you.
Oh, she
Jim.
said that.
I said
yeah.
Jim.
Thanks, Howie, though.
I said Jim. But not
Thank you
Jim.
very much.
Sorry, Howie, yeah, Jim.
Appreciate that,
Wait,
Howie.
where's
Thank
did
all.
you have the blessing there?
Oh, I do, the
Let's
benediction.
do it. I'm going to say the benediction.